Hello everyone and welcome to Total War Through the Ages. In this episode, well, we march on Rome. As you saw from that intro, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I threw that together since this is kind of a big deal, this special episode where we are beginning the Roman Civil War. And of course we're going to begin it by marching on Rome and taking power from the Senate. So, right off the bat, I should mention that I jumped the gun on this. I wasn't sure how this whole mechanic worked, and so basically I kind of was like, oh crap, I can march on Rome? Does that mean I need to march on Rome right now? And so I pretty much just did it as quickly as I possibly could. Now I did wait, because again, initially I didn't know if it was, just I could attack Rome whenever I wanted from this point on. That's initially what I thought it was. But next turn I try, and I actually can't because my popularity with the masses dropped just slightly, and that took me back below the threshold required to attack the other Roman factions. So once I realized that, which you'll see in a moment, I kind of freaked out. But initially I'm just building up more of my forces because again I'm like, okay, well, here we go. And again, like I said, I did jump the gun. I could have waited and done more preparations, finished off the Spanish, finished off the Britons, but the big thing was just I could have definitely taken my time to prepare more in North Africa. Specifically, North Africa is definitely the place where I prepared the least in. So, yeah, definitely could have waited. However, I didn't. So, moving on from there, as you see, I'm now going to rally up the army to finish off the Spanish. I kind of take my time here, kind of like just deciding which units I'm going to use. But I do eventually decide, and that these are the units I'm going to be taking, or part of the units. I'm going to add more to it as we go, of course. I'm going to be adding a few more units. And of course I have some other reinforcements coming in from the east, which will kind of reinforce that garrison so that the garrison can then proceed. So here we have, I'm kind of rallying up an army because I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm about to attack Rome, so I'm going to finally just rally up what forces I have, quickly retrain some guys in North Africa, trying to get that started, or trying to get that prepared to battle the Scipii. At this point, I still haven't actually attacked Rome yet, just so you're all aware. I actually try and do that this turn, though. So first off, we're moving guys, yada yada, all the usual stuff. And at this point, I kind of check, and I'm like, okay. So I was looking around what the Senate's missions were and all that stuff, trying to get an idea of keeping an eye on my popularity as well. I've moved this fleet back around because I was gonna I'm kind of gonna use it as a fleet to send an army over to Sicily. That was the plan originally, though. Since I'm kind of gonna be moving, things are progressing a little bit faster than I necessarily had expected. Yeah, we'll kind of see. And right there, I was just taking a quick look around, make sure I had nothing else, no other units or armies to move around real quick before I launched the attack. But what is this? I can't attack the allies. I don't have enough popularity among the masses. And at this point, I was like, ah, crap, I lost my chance. And so I was kind of freaking out a little bit, and I was like, quickly, okay, everyone run away, because I don't know, in hindsight, I should have left my armies there, because I don't think it would have done anything. Worst case scenario, they probably would have asked me hey, take your armies away from Rome, and but again, I panicked. So next turn, I move my armies back into position, and we are able to attack them because I gained enough popularity. I captured another Britain settlement from the Britons, which I forgot to catch on recording, but that's what took me over the edge. So when I captured the other settlement, which I'll show later on in this episode, the settlement that I captured, that's what
call themselves the army of the Senate and people of Rome. They are our enemies, and soon to be dead. That army is 1/4 of the enemy's strength. So sharpen your swords one last time. When we have killed them all, we will have made a good start. We must take the crossing and carry the fight to the enemy.
So I left that in just because I thought that was a pretty cool speech, and I was mainly interested in hearing what they would say because we were attacking other Romans. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. As you see there, I did my standard checkerboard deployment. We have another full stack army coming across behind the Senate's main army, and then the Senate has a tiny little army of reinforcements. It only consists of 4 units, though those are I think one of them is a legionary cavalry, and then a couple units of Praetorians, and then a unit of legionaries or something like that. So while it's only 4 units, it still is, decent, potentially a threat, and they're coming up behind us. But we did standard deployment of checkerboard pattern, of course, as I mentioned, and I had no idea because I haven't played that much of Rome, obviously. Okay, I should say I've played a lot of Rome because of this series, but I didn't know how fords worked in Rome Total War. I know how they work in a lot of the other games, but I didn't know how they worked in this one. So I was kind of a little bit like, I didn't know if there was only one fort on the map. There might have been others. I think there was only one, but I'm not sure. Here I take one of my my urban cohorts and 5 of my legionaries, as well as I will be sending one of my cavalry. One of my legionary cavalry over, I think that's, wait, those might just be Roman cavalry, I don't recall. But anyway, I send one of my cavalry and 5 of my legionaries and 1 urban cohort over to deal with the Senate forces coming up behind us. But here, at this point, I'm kind of like, okay, so, you know, the ford's right in front of us, we're going to just charge across. I was a little bit worried because it's like, I hate having to fight, you know, in bottlenecks. That's obviously, you always want to try and avoid that. But fortunately, then the enemy army, or our reinforcing army, I should say, is coming up behind the enemy. As you can see there, that amazing-looking line of Julii soldiers coming up. Now, the Senate did have 3 units of catapults, which was a little bit... I was a little bit worried about, because catapults can actually be pretty devastating against infantry in the open field. And so I was a little bit worried because I was like, I hope that... Because they could just outright kill my general, you know, with a lucky shot. So I was a little bit worried about that. But as I was saying, on the campaign map, I actually positioned my armies specifically because I knew there was a river here, and I kind of positioned my one army on the other side and one on this side, and then the one I'm controlling on the other side, effectively so that no matter which army I attacked with, the Romans, the Senate wouldn't be able to use the river to their advantage, as we see here. And also, really good job by the AI charging in with their cavalry there to support me at the river crossing. And once we push across, it'll be pretty easy because we can start to fan out, of course, but we have to take that initial foothold. At this point, I believe I send both my cavalry, yeah, I send both my units of cavalry over to help against the reinforcements coming in. I probably should have sent one of them across the river in hindsight. I probably didn't need both of them over there. And that kind of sucks. We lost the general that's in command of the other army, but fortunately, that's not our faction heir. Our faction heir is our general. And I did that on purpose because I knew that the AI might get our guy killed, and I was like, I don't want to lose our faction heir because, well, one, he's really, really good. He has really good stats and everything when it comes to like his management and his command. So I didn't want to lose him, and he's our faction heir, you know. So he's going to be our next leader once our current leader finally kicks the bucket. So I didn't. So yeah, I want to keep him alive. Over here, meanwhile, against the reinforcements. Now, as you see, they only have 4 units, but they have 2 units. I'm pretty sure they had 1 or 2 units of Praetorians, and then a couple of units of early legionaries, I think, and then they had a unit of, it was either Roman or legionary cavalry. I think it was legionary cavalry. So overall, while there's only 4 units, they have some of the top tier units, and they proved to be fairly nasty to have to deal with. But over here on the main battle, a lot of our allied army got beaten up pretty badly. The AI didn't do a great job controlling it, but, you know, what can I do? You know, they had to control it or I wouldn't get them at all. So, yeah, the other army got beat up pretty badly, but the Senate's army was also basically torn to pieces as well. So, we took fairly high casualties. Now, the army I'm commanding didn't actually take very many casualties, but, of course, the second army did take a lot of casualties, and that's obviously not great because, you know, we want to try and... my goal with the capturing is I want to capture Rome right off the bat, and then I want to try and capture all the other settlements on Italy, on the peninsula, on the Italian peninsula, very quickly, so that I don't have to worry about defending that area anymore. But here, the enemy reinforcements, I tried to kind of sweep around their flanks, but their units countercharge and stuff. And right here, the sound cut out. That's because using the Alt key to order units to attack specifically with melee and to not take time to throw their javelins. That actually, sometimes, I don't know what it is. I think it might be the Alt and something else, like another key I'm pushing at the same time as I'm holding down Alt. It turns the sound effects off. So as you saw there, I fixed that. Like I said, back here, the main army of the Senate is pretty much dead at this point. Like, we've pretty much crushed them entirely. So it's pretty straightforward, and our allies do have a few units left on the field. Of course, they're not completely wiped out, but a bunch of them did also rout off the field. Meanwhile, over here, against the reinforcing army, back to the main fight. Yeah, I edited this together fairly quickly because at this point, as you see, we're just completely chasing down the fleeing Senate troops on this side of the river. But back on the other side, which we're cut over to momentarily, the fight is still going on, but we do outnumber them substantially over there. I did send 5 units of legionaries and a unit of urban cohorts, which, again, urban cohorts are one of the best heavy infantry in the game, so I wasn't too worried about this. We did take a surprisingly good number of casualties over here. I was expecting it to be a lot more one-sided in my favor. But we do kill the enemy general, and that triggers the rest of the army to rout, at which point we have beaten the Senate's army. Well, not all of their armies, but we've beaten a big chunk of their force. As you see there, the city of Rome is completely undefended. Unfortunately, we had the heroic death of one of our generals there, which is not great, but overall, it's acceptable losses, I guess. Luckily, we do have plenty of other generals to kind of take his place. We have an extra one, an additional guy there at the capital, and of course 2 more generals. So the siege army captures Rome without actually a siege. I was a little bit disappointed because I kind of wanted to like besiege Rome and capture it in a siege battle, but we killed all the defenders, so I'm not going to complain, but it was a little anticlimactic because it's like, it's Rome, you know, it's like, it's kind of a big deal. But either way, we take it with no fight whatsoever, no battle, no fight required, and the Senate is gone. The Senate is just destroyed. Now, there is that one army that was the Senate's army, and it's still around, but it's a rebel army now. And a really cool thing about rebel armies is I've almost never seen them attack a settlement in Rome. I've never seen them actually try and capture a settlement from me, so that usually their armies just sit around at their provinces in my province doing nothing. So while I will eventually want to deal with them, because of course it adds to unrest if they are there, we don't actually have to, so we can just kind of ignore them and focus primarily on dealing with the Scipii. Meanwhile, over in Iberia, I'm kind of I pull back slightly here because I want to go ahead and get a full stack of guys to be able to go against the last Spanish settlement. So we just shuffle units around here, kind of as you can see, kind of figuring out the best way, and I do combine some of the guys to get them back to full strength and send like that unit of cavalry back to be retrained, and now we have a full stack of units to send against the Spanish. New general, that's awesome. And regrettably, our faction leader is dead. That's kind of sad. He did a lot with the northern offensive, you know, a while ago, but that does mean that, guess who's a new faction leader? That's right, this guy who was the one who was leading the assault against Rome, or rather the Senate forces, not really Rome itself. Because again, Rome just surrendered once our massive armies showed up. They were like, yeah, okay, you guys can have the city. So we march up, we now control Rome. The Roman Civil War has begun. Now, this turn, we haven't actually seen the full effects of that. Now, to clarify, there are no, like, mechanical effects, except, you know, like, there are no things that happen, like, unexpectedly. But what I mean by we haven't seen the full effects is the Scipii and the Brutii haven't basically, like, they're still kind of in shock, because, you know, we attacked the Senate, we captured Rome, the Senate is destroyed, so now it's just Brutii and Scipii and us, and we are of course at war with both of them. So they haven't actually sent forces against us yet. So we basically have a turn or two to kind of prepare before their armies are in a position to attack us. Because again, we are the ones who were the aggressors. We started the war, so we had that advantage of having the first strike against the Senate, and so they don't have forces in a position immediately within striking distance of any of our territory. However, they do have forces very nearby, which will be attacking us relatively quickly. Now, the Scipii's armies are relatively weak. They actually have a lot of Hastati and Princeps, so it was kind of interesting. Oh, by the way, what you saw there is, so I took the general we had in our capital, I moved him to that settlement, and I moved the second general we had in that settlement farther north. So I kind of just leapfrogged them away, because the guy from the capital could reach to that city, and the guy from that city could reach to this city up in the north. So we went ahead in here because we're going to build up an army for him to send against the Brutii, that settlement kind of northeast of that place. Now, this settlement right here, again, I apologize, I do not know the name, but this settlement right here was the one that we captured that allowed us to, that kind of pushed us over the edge with our popularity again. Now, our popularity was high enough before, but then it dropped down the turn after, and that's why we couldn't actually attack the turn after, when I tried to, but we captured that settlement that turn, and so the turn after, which is the one we attacked, that was kind of confusing and convoluted. I do apologize, but the point is I was just showing that's the settlement that we captured that allowed us to have enough popularity to march on Rome. And here in North Africa, again, we don't have a lot of units in North Africa, but we're going to kind of consolidate them down. At this point, I knew this army wasn't going to be strong enough to contest the Scipii in the open field, so I just moved the units into the settlement, and we're going to just defend it initially, and then once we defend the settlement successfully, we will then counterattack. But that is the end of this episode. I would like to thank you all for watching. The views are very much appreciated. Be sure to check back on all the days that they're released, and as always, till next time, barely got the outro done.